The Buried Giant, Chapter 16. For some time now, the goat had been trampling the grass very near Edwin's head. Why did the animal have to come so close? They might be tied to the same post, but surely there was territory enough for each of them. He might have got up and chased the goat away, but Edwin felt too tired. The exhaustion had swept over him like a little earlier, and with such intensity that he had fallen forward onto the ground, the mountain grass pressing against his cheeks. He had reached the edges of sleep, but then had been startled back to wakefulness by the sudden conviction that his mother had gone. He had not moved and had kept his eyes closed, but he had muttered aloud into the ground, "Mother, we're coming, only a little longer now." There had been no answer, and he had felt a great emptiness opening within him. Since then, drifting between sleep and waking, he had several more times called to her, to be answered only by silence. And now the goat was chewing the grass next to his ear. "Forgive me, Mother," he said softly into the earth. "They tied me. I couldn't get free." There were voices above him. Only then did it occur to him the footsteps around him were not those of the goat. Someone was untying his hands, and the rope was pulling away from under him. A gentle hand raised his head, and he opened his eyes to see the old woman, Mistress Beatrice, peering down at him. He realized he was no longer tied, and rose to his feet. One of his knees ached badly, but when a gust of wind rocked him, he was able to keep his balance. He looked about him. There was the gray sky, the rising land, the rocks up on the crest of the next hill. Not long ago those rocks had meant everything to him, but now she was gone, and of that there was no doubt. And he remembered something the warrior had said, that when it was too late for rescue, it was still early enough for revenge. If that were true, those who had taken his mother would pay a terrible price. There was no sign of Whiston. It was just the old couple here, but Edwin felt comforted by their presence. They were standing before him, gazing at him with concern, and the sight of the kindly Mistress Beatrice made him feel suddenly close to tears. But Edwin realized she was saying something about Whiston, and made an effort to listen. Her Saxon was hard to understand, and the wind seemed to carry her words away. In the end, he cut across her to ask, "Is Master Whiston fallen?" She fell silent but did not reply. Only when he repeated himself in a voice that rose above the wind did Mistress Beatrice shake her head emphatically and say, "Don't you hear me, Master Edwin? I tell you, Master Whiston is well and awaits you at the top of that path." The news filled him with relief, and he broke into a run. But then a giddiness quickly overtook him, obliging him to stop before he had ever even reached the path. He steadied himself, then glancing back, saw the old couple had taken a few steps in his direction. Edwin noticed how frail they seemed. There they were, standing together in the wind, each leaning against the other, looking far older than when he had first met them. Did they have strength left to descend the mountainside? But now they were gazing at him with an odd expression. And behind him, the goat, too, had ceased its restless activity to stare at him. A strange thought went through Edwin's mind, that he was at that moment covered head to toe in blood, and this was why he had become the object of such scrutiny. But when he glanced down, though his clothes were marked with mud and grass, he saw nothing unusual. The old man called out something. It was in Britain's tongue, and Edwin could not understand. Was it a warning, a request? Then Mistress Beatrice's voice came through the wind. "Master Edwin, we both beg this of you. In the days to come, remember us and this friendship when you were still a boy." As he heard this, something else came back to Edwin, a promise, made to the warrior, a duty to hate all Britons. But surely Whiston had not meant to include this gentle couple. And now here were Master Axel raising a hand uncertainly in the air. Was it in farewell or an attempt to detain him? Edwin turned away, and this time, when he ran, even with the wind pushing from one side, his body did not fail him. His mother was gone, most likely gone beyond all retrieving, but the warrior was well and waiting for him. He continued to run even as the path grew steeper and the ache in his knee grew worse.